Hi, welcome to ThreatTraq Essentials, and we're going to take a look at some everyday cybersecurity lessons that we can learn from this week's stories on ThreatTraq. I'm here with John Hogeboom. How you doing, John?
Good.
Let's talk about the story Stan brought to us. Apparently now on Android devices, there's a new feature. You can have more control over your location privacy. Tell me about it.
So basically, Google is implementing a couple of new features in the location tracking capability that is available on most phones because they all have GPS built into them. And there's been some abuse by rogue apps mostly, or apps that maybe don't really need this access, but they have been using them for maybe not so great reasons. So Google's kind of cracking down on that. They're making, first of all, they're giving users more capability to control when apps can use the location tracking, so it's not all the time or off. Now they can say, well, only when I'm actually using the app and it's in the foreground, things of that nature. And then Google also, it sounds like they're going to go through all of the existing apps that are out there and try to kind of clean up any ones that maybe are using this permission but don't really need to or don't have a legitimate reason to.
So you want to be on the lookout for things like that, like apps that ask for permission to do things that they don't necessarily need.
Right. So, not beyond even just location tracking, there's a lot of other types of permissions that apps will ask for. So if you're installing something and it doesn't make sense, like why would this new game I just installed need my location tracking, especially if that's not like part of it? You might want to think about like whether you say yes or no to allowing that, or allow or disallow.
Or if you do pick, allow when using app, remember to quit the app when you're done, or it's still going to be tracking you.
Right, absolutely.
So let's talk about the story Tom brought to us, which is about a new command and control method for malware, I guess, right? So tell me what command and control is.
So command and control is usually when a bad actor who has compromised some infrastructure or your asset, like a computer, it's a way for them to give commands to the infected machine that they've got control of. So that's the basic gist of what command and control is. It's a channel for them to control the machine that they've taken over.
And in this case, it's a new way of doing that that's very hard to detect, right?
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because this is very advanced. This particular technique is using a command and control mechanism that is kind of covertly interspersed with the regular web traffic, but it never makes it to the web server process itself. It's actually the kernel of the operating system kind of scoops it off before it ever gets delivered up to the web server. So to a network defender who's watching the network traffic, he would see this traffic and say, well, it's towards the web server, it's probably legit. But then when you actually go to the web server and look maybe at the web server logs, you never see any of this.
So it's under the
actual
radar.
It's really under the radar. The only way you would see it is by looking at the network traffic. So it's what we'd call like a covert channel in terms of C2 communications. Very advanced and probably used by some nation state actor as a means to do exfiltration or command and control, where it's going to be very hard for whoever owns that infrastructure to be aware of it.
So let's say you're at a company, you're not an IT person, you're not a system administrator. What sorts of advice do you want to give people that they want to make sure they have in their network to look out for things like this?
I would say for sure, because this is such a covert type of thing, and this is probably good advice in general, is to have, in your network perimeter some sorts of security defenses. So, most people have a firewall, but you also want to have some sort of IDS that can look for certain types of network-based activity and trigger on things in the packet payload. And you also want some ability to grab those packets when you need to actually look at the traffic and inspect it more than just what happened that the IDS caused. So you want to have some capabilities there to do some packet capture, detect on signatures, and then have blocking mechanisms that you would have with a traditional.
So really that's
firewall.
a layered approach to security.
Right, that's what I would say, yep.
Okay, you brought us a story about continuing exploitation of some VPN software. We talked about that a few weeks ago, but it continues to go on. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so there's some vulnerabilities in a couple of well-known, well-used, or frequently used VPN software, Pulse Secure and Fortinet. that a lot of people have known, and there's been a lot of different actors out there exploiting this over the past several months, actually, sometime since the fall of last year, 2019. The reason this story came out is because it appears that the guys at ClearSky took a closer look at this, and they noticed that they're amongst all the bad actors, kind of doing this activity, there is a little pocket group of activity that seems to tie back to probably nation-state Iran-sponsored activity. And there was a couple interesting artifacts that they tied some activity together between two different Iranian nation-state groups. So it's kind of interesting from that perspective, but also in that because it's attributed to Iran, there's probably some increased risk there in that if they do get into your network and get a foothold in there, they might do things later on. So they might be lying in wait, have some persistence mechanism that they use this exploit for in order to get on there, and you just want to be aware that there might be another shoe to drop is kind of what they're warning about.
So in general, what types of precautions should one take to protect themselves?
I would say in general, you want to patch especially all of your network perimeter stuff as soon as you can. Make sure those patches are good, but get them applied as quickly as possible, because as soon as they're announced, you're going to start getting attacked by various actors who know about these exploits. They're going to try to break into your network by using those exploits. So make sure you patch as quickly as possible for any of those. And if you haven't patched until now, like you're just finding out about now, you'd probably want to do some additional scrutiny to make sure that something didn't happen in between, last fall of 2019 and now.
That you aren't already infected.
Right, that you're not already infected, because just because you're exploitable, they might have gone and exploited, left behind an implant that doesn't use that exploit anymore, and they could still control or have foothold access into your network through some other, implant that they left behind.
Okay, well, great advice. Thank you for being here, John, and thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe below. And if you want to take a deeper look at any of these stories, click on the playlist below. We'll see you next time.